Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel outside the target demographic. Today I have a bit of an oddity for you, and that is the Victorinox Hunter XT grip. Let's get started. You might hear some chicks in the background. I will try and do what I can to get rid of them, but we recently purchased some chickens and they're not old enough to be outside, so bear with me. What we have today is a 111mm offering by Victorinox. It is the Hunter XT. And it's a bit of an oddity. So typically, when you think Swiss Army knife, you think quintessential red, nice and small, pocketable pocket knife. You also think slip joint blade and a relatively small blade. We'll get into the reasons for that. This one's an oddity in that it's a rather large one-hand opening blade with a liner lock. So a locking Victorinox. Shiny. All the quality you've come to expect, all the metallurgy, lack of ability to rust, all those things in a different package that has many offerings that I don't see in the smaller tool sets. Let's get into, we're looking at just shy of 4.5 inches versus your 91mm 3.5 inches. So, I mean, almost 3/4 to 1 inch longer, quite a bit longer. The return on investment there is the main blade is substantial. So not only do you have significantly more cutting edge, the blade itself is of a thicker gauge metal. Again, you have the one hand opening, you have the liner locking, you have significantly more reach for, say, field dressing an animal, purely hypothetically, but also in reality twice in my life. And as we go to the blade length, we're looking at 3 inches of usable blade here versus just over 2.25 on this guy. Probably perfectly serviceable for at least the deer here in Ohio. But a very nice offering from Victorinox. Very, very unique, says I. It is my understanding that Victorinox is the #1 knife or blade seller in the world, with the metric being the volume of blades sold. And I think the internet largely attributes that to a couple different factors. One, the quality and Swiss engineering that goes into this. Two, the metallurgy. Three, the 125 plus years of experience making quality blades at a very affordable price. If TSA steals your blade from you, by the time you land in the other country, they're going to be having a Victorinox in a store somewhere. They're quintessential. Every country has them available. It's ridiculous. So the fact that they can have them in a bunch of different countries comes down to the fact that typically it's not a locking blade. So a lot of countries won't allow you to carry a locking blade or carry a blade of a certain length. So the 91mm typically is the gentleman's carry. I've had co-workers who have gone into hospitals and this has been in their purse, and the security pulls it out of the purse and goes, "Oh yeah, a Swiss Army knife. That's you can have that back. It's not even a threat." It is universally known as a gentleman's tool, as a multi-tool, as a usable item that happens to have a edge versus a Spyderco. That's it's the evil black scary rifle of the knife world. So the fact that this one has a one-hand opening locking blade is pretty nifty for me. It was honestly one of the larger selling points. I also like that it's not a stud, in keeping with the, we'll call it smooth architecture of the Victorinoxes. There's really no hot spots on this. Everything is relatively smooth and won't hang up anywhere. Having a stud sticking out would be unrefined, shall we say. So by having a big hole here, you can very easily find that with your fingers and get that open. You can also very easily find that and get that open with your fingers gloved, say field dressing a deer with either latex gloves on or winter gloves because it's freaking cold and you already can't feel the tips of your fingers due to hypothermia and all that. So the fact that you could very easily open this one-handed, or find a stick sticking out of a tree and be able to gesture the knife halfway open and then push it the rest of the way, is pretty ideal. Not really even an option on this guy. You're taking a glove off, and even then, hopefully you didn't cut your nails, or you're really not going to be able to get this open. The one thing I will say with the liner lock, we have press here to show you, you have to press it towards the scale to get it to disengage. So I cannot push it away from me. It's a unidirectional. It can only go in the one direction to get that blade to unlock. I don't care for that. It does take a little bit of learning. You can still do it. Push away from you with this finger and pull towards you with the thumb, and you should be able to disengage that lock. You can see it's not the most intuitive. I suppose the counterpoint to that is if I pushed it across and started folding that blade, I'm going to guillotine my thumb. So I suppose it's a safety. I want to say this is one of the thinner tool sets for a 111 millimeter locking Victorinox that doesn't have the push button. I've seen ones where you push on the emblem. I'm not sure how that works. How can you push on the emblem and then use the same thumb to close? If you have experience in the comments section, do let me know about that. But closes and opens relatively easily. The next tool we have is a non-locking saw, but substantial, be it unlocking. Compare that to a 91 millimeter. This is the Swiss Champ. And you have 25% more throw, and it is a thicker gauge metal as well. So I believe it's the same. I guess while we're here, we'll compare. So it appears to be the same number of teeth and the same pattern, so it should be the same cutting ability that you've come to rely on with the Victorinoxes. With a larger throw, you're going to be getting through both fauna and flora much easier. Cutting through trees and cutting through carcasses or field dressing an animal is going to be made much easier with this guy. Cutting through the pelvic bone to we won't get into all that, but trust me when I say it will cut through bone as much as it will cut through the branch next to you. The next tool we have is a locking, essentially a gutting blade. So with the curve and the way that they profiled this, your finger has a nice little groove to sit into, and you can start cutting open rib cages, and we won't go into too much detail for those of you who aren't interested. But trust me when I say it is a very safe way to be able to cut through something that maybe didn't want to be cut just minutes prior. The fact that this is a rounded, smooth edge makes it where you're less likely to nick things that you don't want to nick, or have hemorrhaging in places that you don't want hemorrhaging. Counterintuitively, you can see we have press here, and I literally push it away from me and then close it. Why couldn't you do that with the main? So, were I able to switch those two blades around, I absolutely would. This is proof that Victorinox could have engineered that lock to be the more universal way. They just decided against it. It is a learning curve, though. I do like, too, if you look, this one is a smaller diameter circle versus this one. So the larger blade has the larger cutout. And it is both visually apparent as well as, I suppose you could train yourself to feel the difference there. And then, of course, locating it, indexing it based on where your key ring is would also give you an idea of which blade you're about to open. The last tool we have is a Phillips. Typically, we'll find a corkscrew there. Significantly less handy when you're more likely to have a scope or something on your gun rattling, or a sling coming loose, or fixing some equipment out in the field, maybe something on your bow, as I said, a scope or some kind of mount coming loose. A Phillips is arguably more useful than a corkscrew, as you are freezing in a tree, waiting for something hungry and horny to walk by. Originally purchased with the intention of using this as a field dressing knife, I can't say I'm unsatisfied. It does everything it needs to do. I really like the fact that it's an orange. I feel like that's a very uncommon color for Victorinoxes, and I'm a big high contrast guy. I like painting things. I like making things stand out a little bit more. So the fact that out of the chute, this is already a high visibility orange color is going to make it an intentional mistake for you to accidentally leave this in the field or forget where you put it, versus the quintessential black buck knife that is absolutely going to get left behind. Ask me how I know. So I do like that. The one thing I will say is, even though it's plastic, and I don't think it's the same as these scales are, it's kind of slippery. It's kind of slick. Honestly, let's see. Honestly, I feel like I get more traction on this guy. This is more of a stone countertop kind of feel, versus this one's more a painted cabinet kind of traction-y, grippy. It's weird to explain. But trust me when I say this is not the typical material that they make their scales out of. In addition to the fact this is touted as having like a rubber finish, it really doesn't grip. Be it friction on a Fisker's board or in your hand. It's not as, ironically, it's not as grippy as the plastic scales, which are so ungrippy. I went ahead and made my own wooden scales. Interesting how that works. But that is the offering that they have for that. At least the color is a plus for me. I will say, as a field dressing knife, it is ideal, and I had to dig this out of my kit in order to display it to you today. I had originally purchased it also with the intention of it being a primary folding knife, and then the Swiss Champ would become the dedicated multi-tool with a dedicated one-hand opening blade, which is super cool, right? Didn't turn out to be the case. One, she's thick, and she's thick with a couple of drawbacks in that you don't even get the tool set. You don't get the cap lifting layer, and you don't get scissors. That's a no-go. I cannot carry a Victorinox that does not have the scissors. So even though I would have this on the same belt or on a different pocket, that's kind of a deal breaker for me in being a everyday carrying folder. Also, the liner lock is very unintuitive, and it kind of defeats the whole one-handedness. You really have to get your second hand in there. And again, the thickness just, it isn't conducive to pocket carry. So much so, they didn't even put a pocket clip on there. This is something I've done on a number of my blades. Just basically a double-sided tape and a plastic hook. This will allow me to, that will have to suffice. Let's say this is your pocket. You can have it as a pocket carry, and due to its thickness, you could just reach in and grab it. Or you can adjust the thickness, as you may have seen in one of my other videos on how to put clips on your knives. But you could adjust it to a tall carry or a deep carry. Or I typically have this on my belt. So if this is exposed away from me, this would be on my belt, and I could very easily get to it. It works well enough. She isn't the lightest thing. We'll put there the weight and tool sets and everything off of the Victorinox website. But it was my first and only venture into the 111 millimeters. Definitely a almost built to purpose, right? Field dressing knife. So much so that I won't say it's not a multi-tool. I'll say it's not a multi-situational tool. So this is excellent at cutting and at cutting. The difference between the tools is the distinction of what are you trying to cut versus this multi-tool that I fix medical equipment. I'm using this every day. Co-workers will see me visibly mourning the fact that this either wasn't on my work belt when I left for the day, or more often than not, the kids had gotten into it, and I'm now down to 2 hands instead of the typical 3 hands that I usually have with me. And again, there is visible mourning, but it is definitely a great field knife, and it will continue to be used as such. It will go right back into my kit, ready for the next time I'm freezing my ass off in a tree, waiting for something hungry and horny to foolishly walk by. But as far as an everyday carry, it's heavy and it's non-intuitive, so it's a no-go for me. But possibly it could be a go for you. So that's about all I got for you guys today. This is, again, a 111mm offering by Victorinox, the Hunter XT. If you guys have had experience with this, or any kind of insights that you'd like to pass along to myself or the community here, go ahead and let me know in the comments section down below. As always, this is outside the target demographic. Any questions, comments, concerns you have, leave them in the comments section down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.